So let's start with you, Engineer Fahed. Can you talk a little bit about what you see as the models for creating a sustainable city that you're trying to follow? In other words, are there other cities in the world that you're seeing as models for what Dubai can be doing?
Yeah. I think if I want to link this question with the climate change, it's very complicated puzzles. Today, when we look at the climate change discussion and the global scale, it is always being discussed on a global scale. And as a UAE, we don't live in a global scale. We live in a country in a regional scale. So it's better to have a better understanding what will be the impact of climate change. If we want to speak about sustainable cities, first of all, I want to know what are the major challenges that this region is going to experience comparing with other regions. Today, there are modern cities, UAE, in Singapore, in UK, but I cannot adapt the same environment that it's available in Singapore and in UAE. But the challenge for UAE, if we want to talk about sustainable, we should not only focus on about emission reduction, because climate change is happening for sure. I have to focus more on the adaptation. And a very simple example, and majority maybe has witnessed this. This year, we have experienced raining during April and May, which is something we haven't experienced in the past. And these months are very hot, and when you have sudden rain, next day we noticed all the roads are cracked. Mm-hmm. And that put a maintenance cost. So with the Ministry of Infrastructure, we are doing further studies to understand the behavior of UAE roads with the climate that we have. So in terms of sustainable city and what do we want to achieve, first we need to understand what do we have. I think with the artificial intelligence, I have been here and outside, it's all about data. If you don't have a data, you cannot start developing an artificial intelligence system in any region.
So Carlo, I was asking, what are the good models for cities that are using technology to adapt to climate change?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. By the way, before that, I think there's something that relates all the three presentations, which is actually real-time feedback loops. And I just want to tell you, I had a very quick example of this, because I was here until 2 minutes ago, and I told you I was going out for a minute. And immediately as I went out, I started getting messages of people saying in real time, please come back, it's on stage. So this real-time feedback is really part of what is behind all of this. And I think, going back to your point about climate change, I think real-time feedback, again, is a very important part, also in terms of understanding the consequences of our actions, and so how we can change behavior. So data per se, when you use it to share with people and can promote, again, a feedback loop that leads to behavioral change, could be one of the most important ways in which to tackle, to make cities more sustainable. Of course, we can talk about other components, the more specific things, technological things. If you look at the big data analytics we saw before, some of those we contribute to reduction in emissions. But I would stick to that, to the fact of data is the beginning of behavioral change, thanks to sharing.
So is there a city, or are there cities in the world that you think are good examples of doing some of this already?
Well, I think, I showed before some data from New York. And New York has been really leading in the sharing of data, especially when Mike Bloomberg was mayor. Mike Bloomberg built a giant company, very successful company, Bloomberg, on data. And I remember in his office as a mayor, he had a little sign that went, in God we trust, everybody else bring data. And so the thing that what he did then during his administration was really to take a lot of data sets that the city had and basically open them up in order to allow researchers to study it like we did, or even citizens to get a better grasp of their city. By the way, about real-time feedback loops, I keep on getting one because somebody thinks I'm not on the stage, and so from outside they keep on calling me now to say to come here.
All right, so everyone outside, Carlo Ratti is here. Okay, Predrag, so if the kind of installations that you're doing, how do you imagine those, I don't know, maybe scaled up or operating in a way that could enhance people's awareness of, let's say, the climate impacts of their actions in a city? So going back to what Carlo was saying about having real-time feedback loops, could you create real-time feedback loops that allow people to see how their behavior, let's say, is affecting the environment or the condition of the city at a given moment, and use that to modify their behavior?
Yes, so if we are talking about human behavior, we are talking about educational part, so we can educate them, we can put them in certain environment which has certain meanings they will understand, or we will involve them by creating environment they feel like they know how to use it, and then through action, they can change themselves. So that's the way how behavioral change is working, more or less. I'm just giving that on a really simple level. When we are talking about how to involve artificial intelligence, what I want to say is by creating content. So the action itself, how we will involve people in certain environment, the system stays the same. But do we have artificial intelligence? Would we be capable to collect that data, to deal with that data, to process the data, and to direct them into certain direction like behavioral change? Because at the moment, we humans are making plans from the art and design part. We are making those meanings, we are thinking how we will interact, how we will build user experience. The question is, if we are dealing with artificial intelligence, is it possible that artificial intelligence can deal with user experience design? Because at the moment, I'm not sure in that. Yeah. Because lots of things are involved, which are purely human.
There's another component I think it's interesting, is about how we can use design to speculate about different ways, we could transform a city or, deal with AI. So it's this idea of using speculative design as a tool, as we said before, really to transform the present and help build the future.
Right. If there are any questions, please put your hand up. I think we have the microphone. While we're waiting for people to think of questions, I'll ask one more question myself. Are there any smart cities in the world yet? And if not, why are we not there? Because people have been talking about smart cities for such a long time.
Well, I mean, if you look to the component of smart cities, you end up with many things. Smart government, smart education, smart infrastructure, smart so on. Today, 100% still not there. But with the artificial intelligence, we might be heading there. I think today, how do we define a smart? What is the high peak of being as a smart cities? In every decade, there is a challenges we are experiencing, and we have to taking them over. I think today, when we talk about the traffic in New York, maybe in the past, the traffic was designed to serve the need of the cars. But today, now we need to update it to serve the need of the people. Because this is a new concept of way, because the population is increasing and increasing. Today, when we look at the government of UAE in the past 10 years, we've been thinking about the e-government, doing everything online. Now it's everything online. You can sell your car while sitting in your home. Easily you can transfer the registration. So what is next for us? We need to have maybe smart hospitals. Today, I think if I am a doctor, I know who will be visiting me by looking at the climate, by looking at the scenarios that we have to me. I think there is a way of moving forward, but every region experiencing different challenges, and we cannot compare the smart cities in this region to be compatible with the other region like in Europe or Singapore.
Yeah, and maybe to add to that, when people talk about smart cities, but really today the definition is very vague. It's not. So the first thing is about to define what it is, and as you said, smart cities, one way to understanding is exactly the same that happened like 20 years ago with digital. At the time, it was digitizing the physical world. Well, today is about digital and physical coming together. It's about the internet becoming Internet of Things. And all of those applications having a big impact in what, for instance, Richard Florida calls urban tech. So that's a way to define smart cities. So if that's your definition, anything from Uber to Didi to the scooters to the docklet bicycles to Airbnb, many other things, all of that, plus municipal services, smart municipal services, all of that, all the self-driving we said about, all of that belongs is under the umbrella of smart cities. And I don't think like 20 years ago you had people trying out different things, and what happened? What started 20 years ago now changed our lives in so many dimensions. The way we shop, the way we meet, the way we work, and so on. So in a similar way, today we're seeing a lot of experimentation in different cities. So Singapore is focusing primarily on mobility. Copenhagen is focusing a lot on sustainability. Milan on using smart technologies to bring more nature into the city. Dubai is working a lot on, with a focus on citizens, on happiness, and so on. So I think we're looking at different cities exploring different things. I want to tell you, however, one thing where I think, Dubai could have been smarter. And, I got a lot of respect for Dubai and how the city has been transformed over the past few decades. But, a terrible thing, as we try to make our cities more sustainable, is that utter unsustainability from energy consumption point of view of all the architecture, the urban fabric that has been built here. There's building that could have been in Toronto and just get copied and pasted into the city. And that doesn't make any sense with the climate you have here. So I think the next level here is really to start thinking about how architecture can change. And also would be much more interesting. It could develop like a new vernacular, something which is much more relevant to the region and to the local climate, and create a unique architecture which is much more sustainable and smart in the way it uses energy in Dubai.
Fahed, do you have any response to that?
Yeah, I think this is what the government took. I mean, when we look today in the modern constructions happening in UAE, we have the sustainable cities, we have Masdar cities. These are a role model example of how we are going to construct our future cities. Today, when you look to Sheikh Mohamed bin Rashid or Sheikh Zayed housing program, now we are building our houses to becoming more modern to become more sustainable than what we have the typical houses in the past. It is there. We have the green codes, we have the sustainable codes. That's part of the construction is being considered. I think, as you mentioned, when you look at this region, the challenge we experience is the temperature and the humidity. Yeah. And if you look around the earth, we consider ourselves like we are living the futures for other regions in terms of increase in the temperature. There is no country has reached 51 or 52 degrees than being in this region. So what learning or experience we can take from others, while they should take it from us. And this is the focus in the upcoming year, how the temperature will have impact on the lifestyle of the people, and the agriculture, and the transportation. 2 years ago, the temperature when increased in Kuwait and India, with the road specification, the road melted. Yeah. So the car started to sink in the road itself. So the question is how we need to understand the impact of the future scenarios.
Yeah. And I would say that really important again, is actually how citizens are experiencing smart cities. So more and more people are talking not only about smart cities, but also smart society and citizen experience. Because as you end up with really advanced cities, smart cities, and unhappy citizens, actually what you achieved, you didn't achieve too much, because you are talking, okay, if I implement technology, if I make smart cities, your life would be better. But what we need to be aware and to collect information about all the frustration people are having in smart cities and how to improve that as with the final goal of improving citizens' experience of their own city when they are becoming smart or when they are smart.
Right. We have a question there, and then we had one in the front, and then many questions. Yeah. Please.
Yeah, thank you for the eye-opening questions, for the eye-opening presentation. It could be my question eye-opening. Just for Mr. Fahed, it seems that your work, it is not one ministry work, it's collaborative work. So how you collaborate with other ministries, with other emirates, with this diversity to get to one collaborative strategy to respond to this challenge? Okay. Thank you.
I think I can refer to my example. When we work on the adaptation program, we have identified 4 key sectors: energy, infrastructure, environment, and health. With the climate trends that we are going to experience in UAE, with the historical data, we sit with the 4 sectors from the health and energy infrastructure, and we discuss the priority for them that they need to focus on them. Like, for example, if I take an example, the Ministry of Health and Prevention, now they have developed or adapted UAE climate change and health framework with establishing a UAE health and climate change committees. What they are going to do, they are going to focus on the priorities that we have recognized for them and to be part of their business plan for the next 5 years. And the cycle of the review is going to happen every 5 years. I think the issues we will have in the upcoming year, when we look to the historical data, we have a challenge with the temperature. So the question is how that has a link with the asthma diseases, blood pressure, and diabetics. And we want to create, so in a way that when you visit your doctor, you don't want to ask him, what medicine he prescribed you, but you want to ask him what was the cause of that illness or disease. This is the concept that we want, and that for sure will move toward the smart cities or smart hospital. I want, because if you ask me what was my last medicine I got from the doctor, I don't know. But if you ask me the cause of that illnesses, maybe I'll be able to remember and to avoid in the future.
There was another question here. Yes.
Good afternoon. I think it's already afternoon. Yeah, good afternoon. Immense thanks for the three speakers. This is Waddah Al-Hanai from the Federal Authority for Nuclear Regulation. I'm sorry, I should have identified myself first. My question is to all of you and about smart cities. We in the UAE have three parts of the country. We have the air we breathe, we have the land we live in, and we have the sea, which is the Arabian Gulf. Now, I didn't hear anything about the Arabian Gulf, but I was fortunate to attend one of the stakeholder workshops that the Ministry of Climate Change held and invited us in 2016. We heard that the Arabian Gulf was already 80% dead and continues dying. What actions do we have to save the Arabian Gulf?
Thank you. And we're running short on time, so...
For sure, maybe I can have later discussion with Dr. Waddah, but the Arabian Gulf is not dead, it's still alive, but we are at the midst of climate change with the difference of our stakeholders. We are studying the behavior of the Gulf and how it's being impacted, mostly with the water salinity. There is more than 2,000 water desalination from the Gulf taken from the neighboring country, and then they discharge the high salinity back to the seas. There is an impact on the livestock, but with the initiative that the ministry took, for example, the artificial cave, which we released in the Gulf to increase the population of the fish. Similarly, with the Environment Agency of Abu Dhabi, they have banned fishing using the net and other type of fishing tool, which is called gargoyle, which is a cage that the fish can get in. That is for a purpose of bringing back the population of the fish. I think that the region or the country experiencing a challenge. No matter what you do by yourself, still the challenge is there, because this won't be solved without having this joint effort from the neighboring country, which is something that we are looking into.
Great. Okay, unfortunately we're out of time, so I'm going to thank you very much for coming up. Thank you. Thank you. So, one final quick session before lunch. As I said, there's also another Smart City session in the afternoon. My takeaway from this one was there is a lot to be done in terms of accumulating data and using that data in order to make cities more efficient, more self-aware, make the people in them more aware. It'll be interesting to see what the speakers this afternoon take from that and how they play it forward.